Coming up on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast, Tony Haskel is battling cardiac sarcoidosis.
I went in for an MRI, and the day before I was supposed to go in for the pacemaker procedure, I get called into my cardiologist's office. She calls me on the phone, or her office calls me on the phone and says she wants to see you at 5:00 in her office. It's like, hey, you gotta be kidding. Can't we just do a phone call? Like, no, in her office.
Tony was a very fit person, but Sarc seems determined to keep him on the sidelines.
I haven't hiked or anything. I did hike up in Vermont, and that was not easy. I'm not going to lie. So I think there's a little bit of concern with my prior cardiologist about going into altitude.
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast, living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Hello, this is episode 167 of the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I'm your host, John Carlin. The date of this recording is July 24th, 2026. Hope you're feeling as well as you can be today and that you feel hopeful, because that's what we try to do here on the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. I say we. When I say we, I guess that's in the royal sense, not that I consider myself royalty, but I feel as if I do represent a large group of people, not the least of which is FSR itself. When I say that one of the things that we really want to accomplish here is that we want the people who are listening to this podcast to feel like they're getting straight information. They're hearing it directly from patients. They're hearing it directly from me. You're hearing information that you can consume and that should be helpful to you and give you a sense of knowing that there are other people out there who are either fighting the fight or fighting on behalf of everybody. And that this is just solid information about sarcoidosis, and we want you to walk away knowing that there is an opportunity to succeed, despite the fact that sarcoidosis has gotten into your life. So, having said that, my guest on the show is Tony Haskel. He first joined me on episode 83. That was in March of 2023. Tony and I have kept in touch. He has been great about finding people for me to speak with. He often follows up when I interview somebody and he thinks he can either help them or wants to communicate with them or commiserate with them. And so he'll often reach out to me and ask me to make an introduction, which I'm always happy to do. So Tony and I have sort of developed a friendship, if you will, since he was first on the show. So, Tony and I probably have a bit of a kinship because of our love for outdoor sports, skiing, bicycling, hiking. You've heard me talk about this stuff ad nauseum, and I appreciate your patience. But it seems like there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast, as you've heard me say before, who kind of come from that arena, if you will. And Tony pushes himself. As you'll hear when we talk here in just a little bit, Tony has been a way better than average amateur athlete. And Tony and I are about the same age, so when I talk about better than average, please take that with a grain of salt. But Tony is somebody who could get on his bicycle at one point in his life and go out and ride 100 miles. I think that's pretty good. So I wanted to follow up with him. I wanted to see how he's doing now, 3 years after we first began speaking, and to have him share that story with you. And he's going to talk about his progress and his lack of progress, honestly. So he'll be sharing that coming up. All right, we've had a big week here at home in the Carlin household. Our granddaughter Olivia, who's going into second grade when the school year starts, came to stay with us. Olivia lives in Chesapeake, which is, think Virginia Beach, if you will, but she's 4 to 5 hours away from our home in the mountains in the western half of the state. And we wanted her to spend some quality time with Nana and Papa and her local cousins. And she did. She was with the other cousins just about, I think, no, actually every day this week, and they just burned it up, just doing the things that young cousins do. They're all in the same age bracket, and they all get along great. And we enrolled her in a gymnastics camp, which she just loved, and two of the other cousins went as well. So there were kids that she knew in there. And it was, it worked out really, really well. And I got to say, my wife just loved having her here. Mary was so happy that Olivia was just here, and they spent so much time together, and it was just really, really wonderful. And then, from my perspective, I was working a lot, but you talk about pushing through the setbacks from sarcoidosis, and grandkids are a constant reminder of how precious life is. Now, sometimes I have other great exploits to share with you, but I got to say, I have not encountered any bears this week. I've not ridden my bike across the state. I've not been invited to the White House. I felt like I had so much to share, but it's been a slow couple of weeks since last time. I did shoot a story for the news on gravel biking this morning, and tonight I'm just about toast. I had asked a friend to show me a new route so I could do a report on the opportunities around here to ride dirt roads in the region. But he took me up the side of a mountain on a rutted out road that I could barely ride. I had to push my bike quite a lot. So I was not real happy in the moment. But that was what we call type 2 fun, right? It's not fun till later, because when it was over right then, I was literally ready to sell my bike. And now, 8 or 9 hours later, I am so full of myself, of what I accomplished, that I want to go back. Okay. Look, back to the topic at hand. I have an update for you if you have been struggling with your insurance company. FSR, Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research, is now working with a group called the Patient Advocate Foundation, and they've got a new program for people with sarcoidosis who need to try and navigate your insurance, your disability, and some other financial challenges. And I'm going to read you a quote from Mary McGowan. The quote is, "For far too long, patients living with sarcoidosis have had to navigate complex insurance systems and disability processes, delaying access to diagnosis, screenings, medications prescribed by their clinicians." Boy, don't I know that. And also financial support systems required to help them navigate their day-to-day living with sarcoidosis. And that's Mary McGowan. She's the president and CEO. I'm reading directly from the foundation news release. And she continues, FSR's collaboration with the Patient Advocate Foundation is a game changer for our community. She says the program will give the sarcoidosis community, quote, access to unparalleled expertise in patient navigation and case management services. And so what I'll do is I'll put a link to that news release for you with the show notes, and you can also find it at the FSR website. But towards that end, speaking of the foundation, I'm traveling to Washington, D.C. this week for 3 days of FSR board meetings. I'm proud to be a member of the board, and though we do often meet online on Zoom calls, this time it is a series of in-person meetings and working dinners as the board helps to chart the course for the organization over the next few years. We'll be looking at things like, where do we want to, whatever money we raise, where do we want to spend it? How do we best appropriate that? Do we put it towards patient services? Do we put it towards legislative initiatives? Do we want to fund more research or a different kind of research. And believe me, when you get into it, it sounds like we're splitting hairs, but there's lots of different ways that you can appropriate that money in order to produce the most good for the sarcoidosis community. So those are the types of things that are on the agenda, and we'll be talking about those, and I will share what I can when I come back. I don't know that we'll reach final definite conclusions, and I don't know how much of it will be public facing until it is public facing, and that doesn't necessarily happen right when we come out of those meetings, but I definitely will share as much as I can when I come back, so look for that in the next episode. Meanwhile, coming up, Tony shares his story.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Welcome back to the FSR Sarc Fighter podcast. Joining me for a return visit is Tony Haskel. Tony, is this the second or the third time you've been on the show? It's the third, isn't it?
This is a hat trick, John. I'm a hockey guy, so
okay.
This is the hat trick.
I'll take it. Well, you're in an elite group then. I'll tell you what. Not many people can say that they've been on this podcast multiple times, and more than twice is a very elite group. But you're a fellow Sarc fighter, joining me today from Connecticut.
From Stamford, Connecticut.
Stamford, Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's summertime, but so I want to refresh people's memory, because the first time you were on this show was, I want to say it was in March of 2023, so it's been some time. But you have cardiac sarcoidosis. Can you give us sort of the baseline of that first?
Sure, I'll just take it back. I mean, I won't run through the whole. I was born, or I guess I was born, but they didn't detect it until I was in college, a heart murmur. And then in around 2007, I was diagnosed with a bicuspid aortic valve and a left branch block and a mitral valve prolapse, which basically meant that I'd need to be, monitored by a cardiologist once, maybe at the most twice a year, but it never affected anything I did. And I was doing a decent amount of cycling and hiking and skiing and helicopter skiing and all the other stuff. Never felt anything. During COVID, as I've alluded to on this podcast, the first two times, I was up in Vermont with family, and I was in between jobs. So I was doing a tremendous amount of cycling, a lot in the hills of Vermont, and probably got in the best shape I'd ever been in. And in 2021, returned back to the city, but quickly sold my place. Once I had left New York during COVID, I kind of came back, and I was like, I don't know, I think I'm done with the city, and moved up to Southern Connecticut. We're in the same area I'm in right now, but was still training. I was doing these 100-mile rides and some charity events, and I was gearing up for, I'm going to say in like right around this time frame, I was gearing up for a 100-mile ride the first weekend in September. Called the Kelly Brush Foundation ride, and she was a Middlebury skier who was racing in 2006 and was in a crash and paralyzed, so she created a foundation.
Terrible.
Anyways,
she raced for Middlebury College?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that area well. Yeah,
and she's tremendous, but nevertheless, I was just on these simple, as you know, you're a cyclist, these, some people might think is big, but 20, 30-mile rides that are just kind of like getting your legs fresh or whatever. And for whatever reason, I started getting really heavily fatigued, having to pull over on the side of the road for several minutes at a time, like literally every 5 minutes, just I was dizzy, I was fatigued. I thought my heart rate monitor was broken because it was down like 50 points less than what it normally is at that pace. I was going at. My power numbers were down. And also I had gotten an Apple Watch during COVID around end of April of 2020. And I would sleep with it to track my sleep. And I would have the buzzer go off in the middle because my heart rate was going below 40. And I couldn't really figure it out. I'd get up, out of bed, and I'd be a little bit dizzy. So I just couldn't figure it out. So this, days turned into weeks, and I told my cardiologist about it and went in there, and, my heart rate was low, but she thought I was, in really good shape, and that's why my heart rate was low.
Which is common, right? I mean,
Which is common.
endurance athletes always have a very low heart rate.
Absolutely. And, but it started getting, worse. And I signed up for this cycling event, and I went up and I did it, but I didn't do 100 miles. I did 20 and did not feel well doing it. And I'd say probably 2 days later, I was at Columbia Presbyterian for a stress test. And before the stress test, they do your blood pressure and your heart rate and everything else. And my blood pressure was literally through the roof, and my heart rate was in the basement.
And you've always had a low or normal blood pressure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And long story short, they said, we're not doing the stress test. You have heart block. And my best friend works at Columbia, has been there for 25, 30 years, or actually 30 years, 30 plus years, as I believe the number 2 cardiopulmonary therapist there. And he said, yeah, you're probably going in for a pacemaker. It was like, okay. And I'd say 5 days before the procedure, I went in for an MRI just for precautionary. They just want to double check everything. They'd already done a couple PET scans, but they couldn't, they didn't really, I guess they saw actually it was the stress test that diagnosed the heart block. They didn't, maybe they didn't do the PET scan. I went in for an MRI, and the day before I was supposed to go in for the pacemaker procedure, I get called into my cardiologist's office. She calls me on the phone, or her office calls me on the phone and says she wants to see you at 5 o'clock in her office. It's like, hey, you gotta be kidding. Can't we just do a phone call? Like, no, in her office. And I was like, all right, this isn't gonna be good. And then they told me we got the MRI results back. And you have this thing called sarcoidosis. And of course, I didn't know what it was, and they were trying to explain it to me. And the one thing they did say is mine was cardiac, and that's why I was having these issues. And there's 2 different elements here. One is that you're going to go in for the pacemaker, and that's going to alleviate the immediate problem with your heart rate, but there is no cure for this. And we'll address the medications and how you're going to go after this, a couple weeks after your procedure. But in the meantime, we have to change the device from a pacemaker to an ICD pacemaker. And
with a defibrillator on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And they said, and we want you to leave here right now and go immediately to the emergency room.
Go to the emergency room.
Immediately. And I said, great, I'll just, I'll take the train in. No, you need to go in, someone needs to drive you in there now, right now. My heart rate was at 30 now.
So wait a minute, you're already in the cardiologist's office.
Cardiologist has 2 different offices. One's up at Columbia, where I'd be having the procedure, and also in Westchester.
Okay.
And Westchester, New York, which is about 45 minutes to an hour outside the city, to give or take. We're in Westchester.
Right.
So I was in her White Plains office.
Okay. But she wants you to go to the ER to have this thing installed in the ER? I mean,
she wanted me to go for 2 reasons. First and foremost, the insurance company had not approved of the change from a pacemaker to an ICD pacemaker.
I see.
And this would force them to, for anyone out there that's going through the same thing. And number two is she really did not like my heart rate. And it was interesting. I mean, I've never been in the emergency room as a patient before, but I've had to take people. And as you can imagine, it's usually a gazillion people there waiting to see a doctor.
Right.
I get there. She had also called before, so I guess they were prepared. But, they took my heart rate and they're like, now. And there's probably like 5 doctors waiting for me.
Okay.
And they were kind of amazed because my heart rate went in the high 20s, but all the way down to 27. And I'm speaking to them like I'm speaking to you right now, and I'm uneducated on this stuff. I didn't know that I should have been horizontal and not talking or comatose. And it was a long night because the beeper kept going off because my heart rate kept going under 30. And the next day I had the procedure and I walked out the following day. They kept me, for one night because the procedure is supposed to take place in the morning. As these things happen, it took place in the late afternoon. So they decided to keep me overnight for observation, and I was out of there the next morning.
Yeah. So at this point, the pacemaker is a Band-Aid, right? Like that's going to regulate your heart rate. Great. Yeah. It's going to go off if you have a heart attack with the defibrillator, right. Which talked to a number of people on this show. They all say you do not want that to happen.
Knock on wood, I haven't had that happen.
You haven't had it happen yet. I was okay.
The only thing I've had happen is right when you get these things, you sometimes need some tweaking. And so for once or twice, the thing kind of went nuts and it went up to in the high, my heart rate was in the 170. And then I think on the last podcast, I told you I was cycling for the first time up in Boston area with a friend, and my heart rate went up to 205, and I just called up to her and said, got to pull over, hang on, and which freaked her out. But did the rest of the 20 or so mile ride. But so there's some tweaking that needs to be done with it. And at that time, that was 8 months after the procedure. So I'd gotten clearance to do that. But after that, they shut me down off the bike, at least outdoor bike.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I might have told you in 2019, I was in a cycling accident, but I didn't hit anything and nothing hit me. I just went down, and there's actually videotape of it because the people that picked me up off the pavement had a dash cam.
Mm-hmm.
And I was knocked out cold, and I still can't tell if I just blacked out or if I was going for the water bottle and hit the stem of the bike or just kind of lost control a little bit, or hit one of the white stripes in the road and just slipped, or I just don't know.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, the cardiologist, I had to do some testing after that, cardiac related. They didn't find anything. So to this day, I just don't know, what transpired. Anyways, the cardiologist shut me down, and then, so I think I told you I went on 100 milligrams of prednisone, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is no fun.
Yeah.
None. How long were you on that?
Not a lot. I mean, they at that level, they initially started off after the ICD pacemaker with 60. This time they did 100, but they tapered down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's still, as we get into things, I'll tell you what's going on. But a lot of these medications have the side effects. The fatigue, the muscle loss, irritability. Obviously, it can affect your sleep patterns, which I definitely think it's affected mine. And then also just what do you call it? Osteoporosis and bone density
from the prednisone.
Liver. I just started seeing a new cardiologist 2 weeks ago. I loved my prior cardiologist, but she wanted me to see a specialist in SARC, and so I point blank asked him. I was like, "Listen, I over the past few years, even one glass of red wine, and I'll sleep terribly, and I'll wake up feeling like I was in college and had a 12-pack."
Yeah. All right. So I want to intervene because you and I have communicated via email on this particular point.
Yeah.
And while I would say that my sarcoidosis is in remission or controlled, and I'm not taking prednisone,
Yeah.
I'm having the same problem, and it's especially with red wine. It's if I have
Well,
a glass of red wine, like with book club, I'm
yeah.
not going to sleep well that night, and I'm going to wake up feeling like crap, like I had a 12 pack in college. What's going on? What'd your doctor say?
Well, I mean, I think I knew this on my own. It's like,
Yeah,
you can say all you want. First of all, I turned 59 a few months ago.
yeah,
And with age, I just think your body doesn't process it the same way.
okay.
Number two, I do think it's liver related.
I think so.
And number three, so I saw my new cardiologist 2 weeks ago, and right there on the spot, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And the comfort I would get from coming back from a long day of work, and you kind of crave something just to settle the nerves because you want to throttle someone in the office or a client, this, that, or whatever.
Right?
It
Yes.
just wasn't worth like literally, like even sometimes just literally one glass of wine, and I just the morning would hit, and I just like, oh my gosh, I just feel like like a truck hitting me.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I'm just not going to do it anymore.
And
So I stopped
you're
drinking.
gonna just go cold turkey, no alcohol, never.
Yeah, it's been I don't know, what we talking, I guess it's been about 12, 13 days. So I got a long way to go, but
Okay, yes, so you're early on, early stages, early days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
all right. And so, so for me in particular, I've noticed red wine is worse than white wine.
yeah,
Although more expensive red wine, which doesn't have so many preservatives in it, maybe,
yeah, yeah.
doesn't bother me as much. And I'm not a big drinker.
Neither am
Like
I.
I am a one beer on a Saturday kind of guy, or a glass of wine with dinner, or a glass of wine with, with our book club. My wife and I belong to a neighborhood book club. Um, I mean, that's it for me.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I really have to watch it or forget it.
I mean, yours a little. I mean, listen, you've had it in more different areas than I have, but with the heart also. I mean, the whole facade about red wine is good for your heart. I wish that
Yeah,
was true. It's
yeah.
not. And I basically asked him. I said, point blank, is there any upside? He goes, absolutely not. Only downside.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was like, all right. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk about liver damage from some of the various drugs, which, I stopped taking Remicade years ago because of increased liver enzymes, which
Right.
that's what the doctor watches. And so Remicade was working for me in terms of sarcoidosis, but yeah, I had to keep getting these blood tests every 3 months, and the doctor's tracking those enzymes. And I don't know that there's any liver damage, but
Yeah.
it could just be because I'm in my 60s. But
Yeah.
my body and alcohol are not friendly partners anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, we can go through the medication stuff. I mean, they're
yeah.
trying to get me off. I think they definitely want me off prednisone. I'd like to get off
Hmm.
it. I've been on low
Hmm.
doses, 5 milligrams, 2.5 milligrams, but and methotrexate, which is I think they're finding better than prednisone, but we'll see.
Yeah. I've
Um,
seen several studies and reported on several studies here on the podcast about the effectiveness of methotrexate. Yeah. Well, so let's get back to your sarcoidosis, because we know you got heart problems, and they diagnosed you with the sarcoidosis in your heart, but it wasn't a granuloma that was necessarily blocking a blood vessel or a valve. It was blocking signal. Am I right?
correct.
Okay, so can you explain that, how it was blocking signal?
To a certain extent.
Well, of course, yeah,
To
we
a
don't want the
certain,
clinical explanation anyway,
right.
because
So,
nobody can
so,
understand it.
so yeah, I have, on your left side of the heart is really where a lot of the action takes place in terms of the pumping, and the granulomas were blocking the signal, and the ability to pump um, blood into the rest of from my heart into my heart, in and out. And that creates the dizziness. Also, I think some of the drugs, post procedure that I had, but I forget which drug it is, but also, yeah, I would be skiing and not on a, bitter cold day, but I would have to go in. I was just, my fingertips and my feet and extremities were just ridiculously cold. And, I've skied on the toughest days out there, and, this is not, anything that cold. And so that's heart related too. When you can't get that blood flow that's naturally going at a normal pace and flow in and out of your heart, that's what the granulomas were affecting
Mhm.
is that pumping, and
Yeah.
and that's what really affected it.
Got it. So now let's go. You and I have stayed in touch via email, and we also have our mutual friend Royce, who has done a lot of fundraising
Yeah,
with his Bike for Sark efforts, and he did a big bike ride this year, and I had him on the podcast. But
yeah.
so you and I and Royce have chimed back and forth, and you've been tracking or giving me updates on your progress or lack thereof. So how have you how have you been able to cope? What have you been able to get back to, and where are you kind of stuck? Can you share all that sort of connect
Great,
those dots
great.
for me, for
Yeah,
us?
great questions.
Yeah.
I've been very religious on weight workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Lightweight. The cardiologist doesn't want me doing big time weight where you kind of hold your breath or anything like that with the hard stuff. So it's a decent amount of reps, but I've been very religious on that. I've been uh, very adamant about doing these long walks. Today I did almost a 6 mile walk.
Really?
Where I've really fallen short is the cardio. I've not. I've I I just can't get going on it. I can't
Hmm.
get going on the indoor bike. I've done the elliptical, back and forth, but my cardio is
Mm-hmm.
not
Is
even
that because
close
you
to what it was.
can't, or because you're not interested, or I mean, are you telling us that you have not the discipline to make yourself do it, or when you do it, your heart just doesn't want to cooperate?
I think, I'm probably quote out of shape, and
Uh-huh.
I
Okay.
feel like I should get on the bike and I should be able to do what I was doing at the same power and the same, levels of, and I can't. And I think what I probably need to do is like shut Strava off and and um and just start slowly again and get back into it, because I do need to get my cardio back to a certain level. I feel like I'm not even close. I mean, I'm going to do this 20-mile charity ride again in September, and quite frankly, I did it last year, and 20 miles seemed like decent effort. Like,
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
20 miles shouldn't be that hard if you do a decent amount of cycling.
Yeah, if you're a regular cyclist, 20-mile ride is like a,
Yeah.
3-mile run for runners, or it's just kind of daily maintenance stuff.
But I remember, I mean, I should be able to get back into it, John, because I remember, so I had this procedure in September of 2022, and then in 2023, I wasn't allowed on the outdoor bike, but I did 100-mile ride for Fight for Sark, and
Mhm.
I broke it into I think 5 20-mile rides on the indoor bike.
Yep.
Which, if anyone has done that, that's boredom. I mean,
That is.
that's listening to a lot of podcasts that keep you stimulated.
Wow.
And uh and I was able to do that. I don't think there's any way I could do that right now.
Interesting. So, but what is the status of your sarcoidosis right now? Would the doctor want you doing this?
I don't think there's any problems with it. I just got clearance to my twin brother has a place out in Utah. I haven't been out. I haven't skied out west since this diagnosis. I haven't hiked or anything. I did hike up in Vermont, and that was not easy. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
lie. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a little bit of concern with my prior cardiologist about going into altitude. So I'll take that slow. But this new cardiologist is doing some baseline. They want to, they're tweaking the medications. I'm going to get another PET scan in October. I'm doing another blood test in early September. Um, they might want to do a biopsy to make sure it hasn't spread to my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
I do have, I'm not an easy case. I have a very severely deviated septum, and I have this dry cough that drives me absolutely bonkers. And I've had it for a while. And you can probably hear it in my throat too. It's been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Sometimes it scares me. It's like, has it gone into my chest? Has it gone into my lungs? I don't know. Um, they did want to do the deviated septum surgery around, I don't know, early first quarter of last year. The cardiologist wouldn't allow it because I had had a reoccurrence of sarc.
So you did have a
And
flare. You had a flare.
I did have a flare in the second half of last year.
And what were you taking for medication at that time?
Pretty much everything I'm taking right now, except higher doses of prednisone.
So it's prednisone, methotrexate, and you have some other drugs, but what are your SARC specific drugs? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, right now I'm on, let's see, Farxiga,
Okay.
5 milligrams, prednisone, 2.5 milligrams, folic acid, which is, I guess, counteracts the one of them, Metropolio, 25
Okay.
milligrams. I'm on high cholesterol simvastatin,
Okay.
methotrexate, Fosamax, and that's it for now. There was several more
Yeah.
um, last year, but that's what I'm on right now.
Wow. So, and who knows what kind of side effects you could be having from any of that stuff. But
Well, with Claude now, it's I just did that today. I said, okay, here's what I'm taking. You know, rattle off the side effects, and it varies. From
yeah.
fatigue to everything that I told you, from fatigue to sleep issues to kind of fogginess sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in there. It's all in there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just like I give you got to cut yourself a little bit of slack,
Yep.
which I'm trying to do.
So, I want to ask you about e-bikes because now I was pounding my chest and bragging in the last episode how I just did this bike ride across Virginia.
Yeah.
And by the fifth day, I was so exhausted that when somebody offered to let me use an e-bike, it's pedal assist, so you still have to pedal,
Yep.
um, and I left it on its lowest mode for 90% of the time. But I got to tell you that it makes it so much easier to go up a hill, and uh, it is so much fun that I am sure I will be buying an e-bike before
I
the summer.
So I've done the I think this is the one you were on, back roads.
Yeah.
I did one in Spain and I did one in Napa Valley, and this is years
Okay.
ago, and had a great time. And now they have the e-bikes on these things.
Yes.
I'm not there yet, John. I
You're
do
not.
need to go there. I have a mental block in my head about cheating.
Yeah.
But
I feel you.
it's not cheating.
Feel
It's
you.
just a little bit of a boost. And if I can get back out there and enjoy myself and not, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I know, I mean, I wasn't that great of a cyclist before. I mean, but in my mind, I was getting to a level that I was pretty proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I can't get there anymore, just given, I'm getting older, and obviously, this changes everything in terms of getting where I need to be. Just
Yeah.
more a matter of enjoying it. So
Yeah.
if the e-bike can help me do that, I'll probably need to look into it.
Well, I mean, look, I've got a garage full of bikes. I don't intend to stop riding them. I've got a mountain bike. I've got two gravel specific bikes. I've got two road specific bikes. And, I'll add an e-bike to the quiver and I'll ride it when it's appropriate. But one of the things I have found, and I'm actually writing a blog post about this, and I don't want to make this podcast about cycling and not about sarcoidosis, but one of the things I found is that before this big trip, we got my wife an e-bike. Well, that flipped the script because I would ride up the hills and then I'd get to the top and I'd wait for my wife. And all of a sudden, we're on this trip with all, climbing all these mountains here in Southwest Virginia and going across the state. And Mary's going by me like I'm standing still. And she's like, I'm sorry, I have to pass because she can't pedal slow enough if she's going to use any power at all. Because I was like going like 2.5, 3 miles an hour on some of these supers, just fast enough to not fall over. And she's beep, 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 beep. And now she's at the top waiting for me. And I get there and
Yeah.
she's like looking at her watch and like, can you go a little faster? I'm like, what? You know, it's all pleasant, but it flipped the
Yeah.
script. So now
Yeah.
I'll have to have an e-bike. If she's going to ride a e-bike, I have to be on an e-bike because I'm not enough better than her.
Yeah.
And it's only marginal anyway. But the e-bike just makes it so you can't ride with other people who are not on e-bikes unless they're really exceptional.
It makes it more enjoyable I mean, if you're in a family and friends and stuff like that, and everyone's at varying levels, it makes it more enjoyable so everyone can do it. So
Yeah.
I need to figure that out. I used to play golf, not very well, extremely high handicap,
Right.
but I don't know. I need to find something to get me back out there again because these long walks with listening to podcasts is not too sociable. So I need to get back out there.
Well, I get that. I get that. So, but you would say, how would you describe your sarcoidosis self right now? Controlled, remission, almost remission?
I'll let you know in about 3 months or so after the PET scan and possibly a biopsy. I don't know. The biopsy will be dependent upon what he sees.
See, yeah. And so you don't have any reason to believe it's in your lungs, but you just want to be sure.
I don't know if this phlegm and lung stuff is from the bicuspid or what do you call it? What I just told you before with the ENT oh my gosh, with the nasal stuff.
Oh, the deviated septum.
Deviated septum. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that or there's just I'm not 100% sure either way. So I'd like to get that cleared up. And if it's that, then I have another bridge to cross as to they didn't want to do it before because they do have to put you out. And my cardiologist was very concerned about that. Now, the deviated septum specialist said he would do it up at the hospital near the cardiac, or in the cardiac unit. He would do the procedure, whereas he normally doesn't, just in case anything went wrong. But I don't think my cardiologist at the time she was like, no go, not until. So if I do get the clearance to do that, then I have to cross that bridge and have that procedure. And then, I mean, there's a lot of intermixing things here. So hopefully with the SARC, it's in remission, and what's causing this is the deviated septum. But if that's the case, I have to get this taken care of because literally this is a severe annoyance. Like it definitely affects me, and it might be what's affecting me on the bike too. Like
Could be.
I can't get the breathing through my nose and stuff either.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a mess, John.
Man, that stinks. I tell
a
you,
lot going on here.
Get to be over 50 and that check engine light comes on, it won't go off. Man.
Yeah.
Well, I
I'm
think
no longer under warranty.
right. Of course, we follow each other on Strava, which is an sort of a social app for people that run, bike, lift, do all kinds of ski, whatever kind of sport, and you can track it and you can share it with your friends and but you said you wanted to turn Strava off. You could also just make it private so that nobody sees it but you and help it, because you don't want somebody, if you're used to having people see you go out for a 6 mile walk and you go out and walk half a mile, then everybody's like, well, what's wrong with Tony? He's only walking half a mile. What's, is he slacking what?
at the end of the day, John, I think all of us are wired the same way.
Yeah.
We think like, oh, what will people think? But actually, no one's really paying that close attention. They don't really care.
Nobody is, but you think that, and that's all that matters. If that's what's
Right.
keeping you from doing it, then it matters, right?
Right.
Right. All right. Well, listen. Please stay in touch. Thanks for the update. I hope you get back out there, get your cardio going, get your heart strong again, get off the prednisone. I hope that your body deals with methotrexate okay. Mine made me really kind of feel angst. I don't know, it just blah all the time. But most people I've interviewed don't have that problem with it. So I hope that you can get off the prednisone, and because that creates its own problems, and then I'll see you on Strava and you're out there riding your bike and skiing.
Well, I appreciate it, John. I also want to say, due to your, as I've told you in the past, after my pacemaker procedure, I was doing one of my walks and, Googled, I said, there has to be some type of podcast on this, and found you, and that's how we connected. But, through the podcast, particularly for cardiac patients, as you've interviewed a handful of them, and every single time I reach out to you and have you connect me with them, and I've created my own small community of friends. I have friends in San Francisco now, and in New Zealand, and a handful of other places. But I must say this podcast has helped make the world a little bit smaller for those of us who have this, and only us kind of know what it's like having it. So you've built a wonderful community here, and kudos to you.
Great. Well, thanks for being a part of it, and thank you for the kind words. And I'll see you on Strava, and I'm sure we'll continue to email back and forth. So thanks, Tony.
You got it. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
So thanks to Tony for sharing his story, and for joining me again on the podcast, and for being a friend, and for continuing to be a part of the sarcoidosis community, and I really appreciate it when he contacts me, or when anybody contacts me, but Tony does quite often, because he wants to follow up. He listens to somebody's story on the podcast, and he's had a great deal of interest in those folks, and I think that he has developed some fast friendships with some other people as well, and I just really, really appreciate it when you do this podcast and it results in that kind of activity. Just tells me that it's all worth it. All right. This is a good time to contact me if you'd like to share your story on the podcast. You can email me at carlinagency@gmail.com. The official Sarc Fighter song is Zombie by Mark Steyer, a fellow Sarc fighter. You can hear Mark's original story in episode 12 and an update in episode 118. Normally, I release every other Monday. As I'm speaking today, yes, my trusty boxer Dougal is curled up on the chair in my office, and Shandy, my adorable rescue mutt, is curled up at my feet. And together, they make my life so much better. That sounds like something you say, but no, I really mean it. I love my dogs. I'm a dog person. If you're new here and you're just trying to figure out what sarcoidosis is, listen to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. My story is episode 1. Again, send me an email. It's in the show notes, carlinagency@gmail.com. And until next time, keep fighting.
Learn to suffer, you feel pain someday. Learn endurance, your strength will fade away. Dead man walking, trying to keep up the pace. Dead man walking,